Thank you, Wynne, and welcome everyone to today's meeting of the Learning and Skills Scrutiny Committee. We have one item on the agenda and a short discussion of our future work programme as well. So to move on to the formalities, first, can I have any apologies that have been received? Wynne, I understand you've had apologies from Councillor Martin and
From Lynette, Chair.
Lynette as Chair. Have there been any other apologies that people are aware of? Okay, in which case we'll move on to the declarations of interest. Does anyone by silence are there any declarations of interest today? No. And please can you confirm that you have not received any prohibited party whips in accordance with section 78.3 of the Local Government Measure 2011? Confirm I haven't.
No.
Okay, thank you for that. We move on to our main item of business today, which is to look at the Estin review of the local authorities' work in support of their learning communities 2020. This is looking at primarily looking at our response to the coronavirus pandemic in terms of how we have adapted as an authority. So I will pass you across to Councillor Phil as portfolio holder to more formally introduce this and then introduce the officers that will be talking to us today.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Pete. Yeah, good afternoon. It's a very positive report that I'm pleased to be bringing forward to you today. And we have officers with us. We have Anna Norrells, Irig Towns, and Hayley Smith. Hayley was on the call. She's still here, isn't it? There we go. She moved around on my screen. Couldn't keep up with you. Sorry. So yeah, you don't want to hear from me, so I'll hand over straight over to officers. I don't know who's going to kick off first, but thank you very much. And I just want to say, you know, it's a really positive report, and the work that's gone in by everybody is really appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Phil. I've seen Irig has unmuted himself. Just to note to members, we are still trying to bring the translator into the meeting. When she does, there'll be a little button appear on your bar so that you can move to the language of choice. But for now, I have to apologise that we are only able to manage the session in English at this time.
Good afternoon, Councillor Pete.
Thank you, Irig. We can hear you.
That's okay. Good. That's good to know. I'll do a short introduction on behalf of the officers, and then we're happy to open it up for questions from the Scrutiny Committee, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the Estin review of local authorities' work in supporting schools was a national report that was brought out by Estin. They were asked to carry out this review of the work of local authorities in supporting learners from March to October 2020. So it covered the first lockdown period and then the reopening of schools. The national report from Estin is actually on their website, which is accessible to all. But Estin also produced individual reports for each local authority detailing the work that was carried out. So we feel that the report that's been presented to you today reflects the strong joint working across our services, across our external partners and the work we've completed with them, our work with schools and their local communities in addressing what has been an extremely challenging and an unprecedented time and situation which we encountered over that period. We'd like to highlight a few areas before going on. Firstly, it's pleasing to see that Estin acknowledged the quick way that the local authority responded to and established the childcare hubs. This was done well, it was done quickly, but it was always done safely and in conjunction with our schools and their communities. It highlights communication as a strength throughout the report. We've established very strong and clear lines of communication with our communities and with our schools. It shows how regular, timely and clear we have been with each of our stakeholders, and how we're now providing the positive use of digital technology and digital media platforms to ensure that we're engaging with all. Dialogue was an extremely important part of our work during the pandemic period of March to October, and we ensured that we were in dialogues with schools, our governors, councillors and trade unions. Now this is so important because it's ensured that their views have been taken on board and taken account of when we've been making decisions. So this has been a joint work right the way through from March last year, and it continues now into this term as well. This was highlighted in the report when it shows about the joint decision about the opening for 4 weeks prior to the summer term, prior to the end of the summer term, and that was taken in conjunction with our schools, governors, councillors and trade unions. The report also recognises how the service provided good guidance, shared good practice and supported digital connectivity over this period. It shows how well the local authority worked in establishing groups with head teachers on learning, operational and well-being, and about how we ensured that heads feel that they were involved in decision making during this time. It recognises the work of the team around the hubs during the first lockdown period, but also how that has transformed into teams around clusters and how this has supported well-being of our pupils and our learners across the local authority. It's also pleasing to see that head teachers praised the work of the Youth Intervention Service in supporting them and their learners during this period. So altogether, we feel that it's a very strong report from Estin. It highlights a lot of strong working that has taken place over the course of this period, but also how we work in conjunction with all of our partners to ensure that this has been a strength within our local authority. So thank you very much, and we're happy to accept any questions or queries from the committee.
Thank you, Eirik. Is there anything specific to your areas, Anwin and Hayley, that you would like to add at this point, or do you want us to go through the document?
Happy, Councillor Pete, Chair, that you ask us questions that arise from the document.
Okay, in which case, with the reminder to everyone that we now have translation, and if you need to use it, you need to set to the English channel if you need the translation. I'll move on. In this instance, I think the easiest way to go through the document and to ask the questions so we cover everything is to work through it sequentially. So in the first instance, does anyone have any comments on what is page 2 of the PDF, the section on leadership and collaboration? I think while people are thinking about this, I would highlight there, from the experience of the scrutiny chairs, this is the second time that the authority has received.
Sorry to interrupt. Is it possible to share the screen and put this up on the screen? That would help everybody, I think.
When are you able to do that? I haven't got it open on my...
I can share if it helps.
I just think it will, because because it's not easy to have two screens going, and if we got it up on the screen, we can just have a quick flick through it as we go.
If you can, Councillor Phil, I'm more than happy for you to. While you are doing that, just highlighting the fact that this is the second quite significant report where the authority has received praise for getting up and running on the political level very rapidly, and the fact that we were able to carry on with schools transformation work and similar despite the situation we were in. And I think, without embarrassing him by name, the officer that's with us today had quite a crucial part in that. And I think that and his colleagues, their work deserves some recognition, which it is duly getting. I'm going to have to, sorry, I'm now having to readjust while I pull back chat and things. Sorry, everyone, I'm having...
Lost the comments now, the chat.
Okay,
yeah,
if you want to take it off, then that's fine. But the thing was, I put my hand up a little while ago and it didn't show anywhere. So I don't know.
It should be showing for me in the participant box, and it hadn't. In which case, Councillor Kath, is there anything else you wanted to say, or was it that?
Well, no, it was largely to commend what has been done personally, because I mean, I've been involved with 2 schools particularly, and the governor briefings and chairs of governor briefings, and from my point of view, it's been absolutely excellent. I couldn't fault it really, because, and I know my head teachers have found the way it's worked has been really good. It's saving them so much time, particularly if they're on an admissions panel. Quite often there's a lot of admissions there, and they can be in County Hall all day for one child, whereas now they can go onto Teams and be called in when they're needed. And they're all finding this really good. I was speaking to one head teacher actually this morning, and he said how good it was. So I really don't think there's anything bad about this at all.
Thank you for that, Kath. I mean, were you trying to come in there?
I only unmuted because we've agreed that I would answer any question on leadership and collaboration. So I was just ready just in case.
Sorry, I mean, there's going to be some teething problems as we work our way through Zoom. Yeah. That's the way it's been given to us as a committee rather than going straight into full council so we can learn. Councillor Bryn, you wanted to come in.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr iawn. Ydy'r cyfieithu'n gweithio I chi?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Iawn, da iawn. Yeah, well, just o ran, o'ch chi'n dangos y dogfen I fyny ar y sgrin funud yn ôl, oedd hwnna'n ddefnyddiol I fi, achos mae'r we ar hyn o bryd mor ofnadwy, dwi ddim yn gallu defnyddio Cisco Connect I agor Modern Government I cael y ddogfennau I fewn ar y sgrin. So mae'n help cael ar y sgrin I fi, ond peidiwch â phoeni gormod amdano fo. Ond just os mae gennau gysylltiadau efo 2 ysgol, un fel rhiant ac un fel llywodraethwr, ac wel, ail ysgol fel llywodraethwr erbyn hyn, ac dwi just eisiau ategu yr un sydd wedi dweud eisoes. Dwi'n digon parod I rai amser caled i'r tîm addysg am digon o resymau eraill, a dilys os ni'n dweud, ond rai mi gamol yn ofnadwy, mae'r trefniadau dan Covid wedi bod yn wych hyd y gwela I trefnus dros ben. Mae wedi amlygu un peth, mae'n anoddach mewn ysgol dwy ffrw, jyst codi hwn eto. Mae'r amser, mae'r athro yn gorfod rhannu rhwng 4 blwyddyn mewn un dosbarth yn hytrach na tas fo'n ysgol un ffrwd yna fysa fo dim ond 2 flynedd mewn un dosbarth, a fysa'r plant yn cael mwy o chwarae teg, so mae'n amlygu hynny. Ond da ni'n ymwybodol o broblemau hynny, a gobeithio bod ni'n gallu symud o hwnna yn eitha cyflym. Y cwyn dwi'n cael gan penaethiaid ydy am amser I adrefnu ysgolion. Dyn nhw ddim yn licio bod y trawsnewid ysgolion yn digwydd rwan, ond dwi'n gwybod pryd fysa nhw yn hoffi hynny. A dweud y gwir, dwi'n cymryd ochr y cyngor a dweud, wel, be ydych chi eisiau staff sydd yn bresennol yn yr adran addysg i wneud dim byd. Maen nhw'n gorau gyrru ymlaen efo'i gwaith. Mae'r gwaith yna angen i wneud. Felly, sylw ydi hwnna, nid cwyn o'n ochr i. Ella gewch chi gwynio'n gan prif athrawon. Diolch yn iawn i chi. Da iawn, daliwch ymlaen ar gwaith da. Diolch.
Thank you for that, Bryn. I'm trying to set this up so that you can see my screen now, but I'm also trying to work out how I can see everything I need to see at the same time, which will take me a moment or two. I was hoping I could get it onto different screens, but I seem to not, so I'm going to have to leave that to one side, and hopefully we can work with that so that I know when people want to speak. So, Councillor Margaret, sorry, I'm promoting you, Margaret.
She's muted.
Yes, I am. Sorry. Please forgive me if you have heard the question before, or there's two simple questions I've got, purely because somebody knocked the door and I had to go. So I couldn't, I haven't heard. But first of all, I want to say the Estin report was a pleasure to read, and all involved with the work from March 2020, when the first lockdown started, must be congratulated and thanked. And Powys was the leader in Wales, or the trailblazer in Wales, and everyone must be very proud of that. So well done. But a lot has been learned about the delivery of education during the pandemic, and positive developments will go forward to be part of the new normal. And I just wondered, because can you give us a flavour of how this will look? Blended learning is the buzzword, but in a couple of sentences, what is it possibly going to look like with the developments that have occurred during the pandemic? And the second question is, obviously IT is a key element, and we've heard in previous updates from the strides the authority has made in ensuring children have access to all the necessary equipment during the pandemic. But still, I am reading about building companies giving laptops, etc., and charities giving, collecting and for this sort of thing, which is wonderful. But I just wondered where we were moving forward in that situation, because, that was all. But somebody's possibly asked them, or they're not, I don't know.
We haven't covered that yet. Do you want to take that, Eirik?
Yeah, I'm happy to come in at that one. Thank you. Firstly, about blended learning. We are developing our approaches towards the new curriculum. A lot of that is based around pupil independence, pupil learning, self-orientation in that. And a lot of the work that's gone on prior to lockdown, over the autumn term that schools have been doing, are very much working towards that, so it's very much in keeping with where education is moving in Wales. It was very kind of you to say that we're trailblazing. I don't think anybody really knows when we started out what was completely expected of us, but the schools have responded very, very well. Each school has their own approach. We understand that, and that's important to take on board, because there is no set way of delivering blended learning or remote learning as it is now. But what we have learned is that pupils are very resilient. We have to adapt the way that we teach. We have to adapt the types of activities that we give them, so that they're able to display those skills that they have. Too often we put ceilings on where pupils are and say, oh, they're at this level and that's where they should be. There's much more independence coming into their work, and that is being displayed in the work that schools are receiving back from their pupils as well now. So I think there's lots that we have learned from that. We've got teachers now adapting the way that they teach, rather than feeling this is the only way to teach. They've had to be more creative in the way that they can get their teaching across to pupils. So that has been adapted, and I think that will help us going forward as we adapt to the new curriculum and the expectations of new curriculum as well. So that's the first one there. The second point about access to digital equipment. Yeah, we've got over 800 families that we have supported as schools with equipment. There's over 1,300 devices being loaned out, but we also understand that that's not every single child receiving equipment. There is still shared equipment across families, and our schools are not equipped to give out and to provide equipment for everybody. So, there are families who are still sharing devices there. We're working with Welsh Government, with the Education Technology Programme, to increase the number of devices inside our schools. 2 years ago, this was identified as trying to improve and increase that, and Welsh Government have been good to put several millions of pounds into this across Wales, looking at the digital infrastructure. Even before COVID was known by anybody, this was there. This year, we've invested a lot into our schools. We've invested in digital equipment for our teachers because it's important that they have the equipment that they can deliver the blended learning and digital and remote learning. And next year, we've received funding again to increase this again. Now, we will be looking in our schools to get equipment up to at least one device per 2 pupils in each of our schools. Now, that's where we're looking to get to. At the moment, we understand where we are. We're trying to adjust with our pupils now to support them. We have nearly all of our families that were able to access at least one device, and there are schools there where they've been able to provide more devices for those families as well. So yeah, we are very much indebted to the support from businesses as well that have given those. We have families who've phoned up schools and said, can we give it and provide that? Without that, we wouldn't be able to support the learners as well in this kind of pandemic. But we are looking to increase our digital equipment inside our schools next year as well.
Thank you for that, Eric. You touched on briefly there around the new curriculum and the changing in ways of teaching. Has having to adapt to the pandemic actually made it easier for teachers to look at how they are going to tackle the new curriculum because it has been so disruptive to traditional methods?
I think that we've been able to do more work on professional development over the course of this period, so they're able to adapt. Whether, I think everything has been such a demand on teachers at the moment. Whether they appreciate all of that at the moment is probably open to interpretation. But I think because we've opened up minds, opened up ideas, been more creative in the way there, I think that we are in a position now where teachers are going to take on change more readily. So I do believe that we're in a better position now than we would have been prior to the pandemic in that case.
Thank you for that. Councillor Margaret, did you want to come back on that?
Sorry, no, that's fine. Fine, thank you.
Thank you for that. Could I ask committee members to leave your hand up and while you're waiting for the response, and I'll come back to you if you want, but if you're happy with what you're hearing from officers, if you take your hand down, I'll move on to the next person to make life easier. Thank you. Councillor Gwynfor. It is Councillor this time.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a comment on our blended learning, digital learning, call it what we like. I think COVID appears to be having a positive effect on this, and it seems to be taking away a bit of the thunder of what we've been achieving within our school sector, because I was a big believer that our digital learning was moving at a pace before COVID actually landed in town. So I I was quite enthusiastic beforehand, and you, Chair, will know I was trying to get us to see an example of digital learning, because I think some of our schools were grasping this better than others. I think that suggestion still stands, and I think it would be very, very useful for us as a scrutiny committee to see an example of a digital lesson actually broadcast. I'm not sure of the data protection with children involved in extra, but I've been involved in some of the lessons that's been delivered by Ysgol Llanfyllin, and I've been so impressed with what they're achieving. I'm not saying other schools aren't, but that's the example I'm using because I've seen it. They were giving us examples of the way they were broadcasting to other schools, pupils, etc. And I think it would be very, very useful if we considered doing something along those lines, or just going into a lesson. And I would suggest now that perhaps we can do that easier than we could before now. So it's just a thought.
It's a welcome thought, and yes, I do remember we were on the point of having a look at the Ysgol suite at the new Brecon High School, well, the new as it was at the time, Brecon High School, just before this situation broke. So I'm sure Wyn is making a note of that, and when he and I and Angela meet with officers, we can explore that again. Thank you for those comments. I think it's worth picking up there on the digital learning that we have already, Eirik. How has this had an impact on the Ysgol take up and offering for post-16? Have there been any positive developments on that as a result of these changes?
If you don't mind, I'm gonna ask
Anwen.
Sorry, Anwen's come in. No. Sorry, Anwen's got more of an overview of the Ysgol project than I have, so I'm going to hand over to Anwen. Okay,
that's no problem. I will pass questions initially to you, and feel free to.
Yes, not a problem. Thank you.
Diolch, David. So thank you, Councillor Pete. First of all, to answer your question, I think we were very much placed and lucky to be placed in a very strong position at the start of COVID, because we had started Ysgol in the September 2019. What we found, especially across the secondary schools, were the Ysgol teachers actually were instrumental in supporting the other teachers with digital and remote learning at the time. I know it just only because of Councillor Gwynfor using Llanfyllin as an example. I know the Ysgol team there, didn't they, Gwynfor, really very much, and the IT technician very much took it by the reins and shared their knowledge and understanding. But since then, our secondary schools and very much our primary schools have really undertaken the professional learning needed and really developed the very strong practices on either Google Teach or Teams. But to answer your question about Ysgol, we are going national this September, and Powys again is in a very, very strong position. Ironically, I spoke to a colleague up in Gwynedd yesterday, and they were telling me in half an hour, Anwen, I'm attending a parents' evening of Ysgol at a Powys school, and they were outside of Powys. So this is the strength of Ysgol across the authority. So where we started with 11 subjects, by September 2021, so this September, we will have some schools delivering 3 subjects, not only for Powys students, but also nationally across Wales. So it's gone from strength to strength, and our students have actually all agreed that actually Ysgol, because they had the equipment, they actually didn't see much of a break in the teaching due to COVID. They could carry on, and actually going forward in the future under the new post-16 transformation, we will be using more and more of the Ysgol systems in order to broaden our offer for Powys students.
I think broadening is an important statement. Absolutely. There.
Can I give you an example? Sorry.
Can I ask a question, because you may answer it? I was going to say, how is that impacting upon the amount of courses we're able to offer through the Welsh medium across the county?
Right, yeah, you're exactly right. It was, and it will be answered. So, for example, coming in September, we're hoping to be able to offer A-level Welsh language, first language, over ysgol, addysg grefyddol, which is always a minority subject that struggles to run in schools, where negotiation over either daearyddiaeth or hanes being an offer, but one that we're actually, and I've got a meeting with the officers in charge at 4 o'clock after scrutiny, is with Mudiad Meithrin, the Welsh childcare movement across Wales. They offer a BTEC in childcare through the medium of Welsh. So we won't be competing against NPTC, but we're hoping as of September that ysgol will be delivering gofal plant, which is childcare through the medium of Welsh for the 7 bilingual schools across Powys. And then the students will be able to access the work experience in their local Mudiad Meithrins in the local childcare or foundation phases. So that's actually a meeting I have at 4 o'clock this afternoon to arrange that. So that's exactly where we're looking at, is broadening. And for example, our pupils are able to access Welsh medium business studies up in Bala currently. And as of September, accessing Bro Myrddin criminology in English and in Welsh. Troseddeg as well will be an offer on our sort of offer for all of Powys students. So yes.
Are you seeing take up from other authorities in this area that could lead to further collaboration?
Yeah, absolutely. So Llanfyllin, I know, are working with Bala with business at the moment. Crickhowell is offering German across the authorities at the moment. So we are moving more and more towards collaborative, because it's not just Powys struggling with student numbers and in trying to broaden the breadth. It's all authorities, and even the urban authorities are struggling when it comes to Welsh medium offers. So even Cardiff authorities, Swansea authorities are joining on board in order to be able to support their Welsh medium and offer. So, and it's just nice that Powys are actually ahead of the game and actually able to offer the expertise, because we have actually some of our technicians are actually working with the Welsh Government on secondments of 1 day a week, advising and supporting.
Thank you for that. I'm going to ask Wyn to remind me about this when we next meet, because I think it may be we want to explore that provision of Welsh language education in a little bit more detail at some point. So I'll take that away, and thank you for that. It's a very positive contribution that's emerged from such trying times. Angela. If you're talking.
Apologies, struggling with the mute. I don't know how to get my camera off now because I've got so many things on my screen. Sorry. Anyway, can't do that. So yeah, I wanted to mirror the comments that have been said so far. I think this is a really positive report, and it's really nice to read all the good works that have been going on. Very, very pleased to hear from IRIG about the positive communication channels that have been built up between schools and the school service. And I can mirror that as both a parent. The communication I've received from Llanidloes High School has been excellent every step along the way, explaining what's happening, Welsh Government changes and all of it. I think they've done an excellent job of keeping parents in the loop. And equally, the communication with their pupils has been really good. And I can mirror that again as a governor, the information I've received as a governor, because obviously we haven't been able to go into schools or have meetings as we would normally do, or the normal events that would go on in the school calendar. We've been kept informed of decisions being made at school, what's happening. So I think on the communication, I'm really pleased to hear about that. I have got a communication issue, but it isn't for this meeting now. So I'm just pleased with that. On the infrastructure, I am also aware that there's a lot of digital stuff been going out to parents, to pupils and to staff. But I was actually amazed yesterday to hear from a parent of three children in primary school. They were all doing work or trying to do work on mobile phones, and she had no idea that there was information. So I'm sure schools are sending out the information, but how you get through to people who don't read those communications, because she was telling me of the struggle and the difficulty, and I'm sure getting young children to work off a mobile phone must be impossible. So really, it's just to remind you to keep banging that drum, because there are some that are falling through the net, really. I will say from my perspective, governor training and governor briefings online, fabulous. I mean, you know, you're done in 2 hours, aren't you? It's really great. I hope you keep that up even when we're allowed to meet again. But the real thing I wanted to talk about, sorry, I'm very long-winded, is about the mental health issue. And you've raised it here in this report about the numbers of referrals. And I have a real complaint against the press who are telling children that they are losing a year of their education, that their futures are at risk, because I just don't accept that. I think schools are very well qualified to bring our pupils up to scratch when they get them back in school, and it will be a difficult job, but I have confidence in our staff, they can do that. And I wonder, is there anything more the authority can do to keep reminding parents, stop putting this pressure on yourselves and stop putting this pressure on your children?
So Peter, are you happy for me to come in first, and then I'll ask Kaylee to come in then on well-being as well. Firstly, we're doing our visits with our schools, our spring term visits through the Challenge Advisors now. What we're doing is very early days in our discussions with them, but we focused on literacy and numeracy as one of 5 areas that we'll be discussing with our schools. And to reassure Angela there, we're talking to our schools about where they see their pupils now, how they feel that they've reacted in terms of progress and where they feel they should be, because obviously we had the lockdown period, then we had the period over the autumn term where they've been back in school, and really asking the schools, well, where do they feel they are? Have pupils gone back? Have they regressed? How have they managed to do that? Now, in many of the schools we've spoken to, they were actually being able to address a lot of the feelings that the pupils hadn't made the progress over the first lockdown period over the course of that term. So it was pleasing to actually speak to quite a few schools who were saying, well, actually by December, we were actually seeing many of our pupils back to where we were expecting them to be during that time. That's over one term. Well, imagine if when we can get them back in, we have got the professionals here that can do this, that we can get the pupils to that point. There's been a very different approach to learning during this period, because it's been all about remote learning. And you talk to schools now, pressure has been put on staff to ensure that learning during this period has been beneficial learning. Whereas in the first lockdown period, the focus was very much on well-being. The focus this time has been between well-being and learning. So, you know, they're hoping that when they get the pupils back, and we've just had a few days back with some of our foundation phase pupils, that those pupils will actually be able to have maintained their progress over the first half of this term. But it was interesting to see and hear from our schools that during the autumn term, the pupils were actually making quite strong progress during that time and addressing where schools felt that they may have been slightly behind when they returned after the first lockdown period. So hopefully that's some reassurance to county councillors, and I know it's reassuring to us as a service to hear that from our schools, because they're very keen to track where pupils are and ensure that pupils are making progress. So we're ensuring that we can get that information out with them. But if you don't mind, I'll hand over to Hayley Smith now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Eirik, and thank you, Councillor Pete. Thank you, Chair. I'll pick up just where Eirik's left off and hopefully come to answer that question for you. But to pick up on pupils in progress, I work as challenge advisor for the PRU and for the special schools, and I've done 3 visits so far. And it is interesting, while the rate of progress amongst some pupils is not perhaps where they'd like it to be, the progress is there. And we looked today, I drilled down into some very detailed information looking at the progress of identified pupils. They are making progress, and I so agree. We've got a very strong message to get out here to our pupils, to our teachers and to our parents, that the progress is happening. There are effects, of course there are, but it doesn't mean that pupils are not making progress. I think it's an important point. And I think we'll have some really good evidence that we can share, not just anecdotally, but data-wise, to be able to share that, I think, with everybody here, Council, with Scrutiny. I'd just like to pick up on a couple of things, if I may, which relates to that. Our tack here at the authority is to focus initially first on pupils, and it's detailed well in the report, supporting the vulnerable learners, supporting those young people around their well-being, that children, young people around well-being, that was the first step. Then it was making sure our teachers were well supported, were trained, take an opportunity of this time to provide high quality training in trauma-informed schools, attachment aware, good quality training on how to differentiate, how to make sure the work matches well the ability, the confidence of the young people, whether that's because they're more able and raring to go, whether it's because they need a little bit more support. So making sure we focus in on that high quality training. Also, I think making sure that our schools are mentally healthy schools. We have a very good strategy here in Powys. We are leading the way, and we want all schools to be mentally healthy schools, mentally healthy aware schools. This is very important to us. So we also provide a training on mental health first aid, on suicide prevention awareness too, which has been very, very important. So I think we've done a very good job so far in supporting pupils in schools, and I think what's next on our plan is using this approach. How do we now get this guidance and support out to our parents to give them the confidence? It is not just about catch up and prepare and about summer schools. It's about looking at the progress that children are making and keep going with it.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really pleased to hear that. Thank you very much. I think my issue isn't what really is going on in Powys. It's the national narrative that is telling everybody that, you know, this is a terrible time and everything's going to be a disaster. And I think that is leading for some children for them to genuinely believe their future is ruined. I've heard it. And I mean, it's not, is it? So thank you, Hayley. That was really useful. Good to hear that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Angela. Graham?
Mr. Chairman, can I yield to Councillor Sandra, because I think she was ahead of me in the hand-upping?
You can, but
okay,
they appear in my screen in the order that they go up.
That's fine. My mistake then. Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Okay. Two items really. One is just to answer a point that Councillor Gwynfor said on digital lessons. You know, speaking with my parent hat on rather than my school governing hat or anything else like that, I've observed quite a few lessons over the course of the last few months, and I can say from a parent's side, some of them are actually excellent. You know, how they develop and how they talk to the children is fantastic. You know, particularly in the secondary side. You know, the ability to help the children, talk to them, help them learn at speed, but learn, interestingly enough, at their own speed as well, rather than sort of holding back and waiting for the class, or quite the opposite, you know, watching the rest of the class accelerate. You know, that support's been quite interesting to watch. And from my perspective as a parent, I can only presume that not having all of the children in the class and having to wrangle them is helpful in some instances. But moving on to the report, I'd also like to add my congratulations to the team. You know, there's a lot of hard work being done in there. And, you know, it's nice to see a good Estin report. It's always welcome. But my question's about, there was a parent consultation issued around the learning experience. When will we be seeing the results of that coming to Scrutiny?
I'll come in at this point. Yeah. Anwen was actually leading on the parental questionnaire, and I'm sure she's got some headlines that we can share with you now, and we'd be happy to share that with you at another meeting, or in between before that, if that's the most appropriate way, but we'd be happy to share that one with you.
Before you go on,
sorry,
we have got quite a busy agenda coming up with all of the school's transformation. But if you'd like to share it with us, I'm sure we can do an offline piece of work electronically where we can review it and ask any questions to you. And I think that will probably be greatly appreciated.
We'd be happy to do that, Councillor Pete. We shared it with head teachers recently and with chairs of governors at one of our recent meetings. So we'd be happy to do that with Scrutiny. Sorry, Armen.
And can I just add, Graham, that it will be actually shared on Wednesday in the governor briefing as well, the parent pupil survey along with the staff survey. Also ready to go out of the individual analysis for the schools. So we've made an analysis not only on an LA level, but also comparing primary versus secondary, so they can compare themselves like for like. So that's ready to go out hopefully next week. But if you attend the governor briefing on Wednesday night, you will have an overview of the results, both staff and pupil and parents.
Actually, thank you.
Thank
you. Councillor Sandra.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to Graham for trying to give way to me, and I don't mind who speaks as long as we get an opportunity to speak, but thank you both. I want to congratulate everybody who's been involved in delivering the distance learning and the transition and the quick, a changeover that has resulted because of this horrendous virus that we're experiencing. Mental health is always a concern. I have got concerns with the staff and the young children themselves. The fact that they are told continually, not to go near people, not to touch people, and then going into schools and having bigger bubbles. And how do children come to terms with the transformation and the changes, and the fact that when they're in school with, say, 30 children in a class, and then they can't go when they're out, they can't go and visit friends, family, relations, etc. So it's a big thing to explain. We can't understand it ourselves fully, and yet to try and explain that to little ones is very, very challenging. My concerns with, and I welcome the report, as I've said, but I'm always looking for where we're not doing so good and how we can improve, because that's the only way that we can truly challenge. And having a good glowing report doesn't help if we want to challenge. So I'm going to ask my own questions, if you'll forgive me on this. One is regarding the Welsh language. When children were in school prior to COVID, they were immersed in the Welsh language. They were in the classroom being taught it. They were going out into the yard. They were talking about Welsh there. If they were in the corridor, met any member of staff, the cleaners, the cooks, anybody, it was Welsh language. The reading on the walls, Welsh language. The writing on the, everything Welsh. And then with COVID, being isolated and being taught at home or being put in front of a screen, very difficult for youngsters. And I'm talking about the younger ones whose concentration levels are not high, but not continually hearing the Welsh language. I have got great concerns about the future of that and what support. I'm feeling that they need extra support when they go back they will be needing to catch up, because they will have missed an awful lot, more so than English medium youngsters. That's my first concern. The second one is, and it's been touched on here, and I'd be very interested to see the statistics. I'm sorry, I can't get my words out here. With regarding the youngsters who are difficult to reach. There are some parents who don't want to engage with schools, etc., and for whatever reasons don't turn on the computers or don't even have the computers to access. There are some youngsters who might have slipped through the net, and those are a big concern for me personally. And I've got to mention about Welsh language and the staff that are involved. We never have had many Welsh medium staff. It's very, very difficult to recruit staff who are trained through the medium of Welsh. Is there anything being done? I know other authorities have got the same experience, same problems, same issues. Anything that is going on to increase and improve that. And my last point, you'll be glad to hear, head teachers and the workload. they have had a horrendous task to keep things going. It's an ever increasing, continually changing environment that they're working with. They look for reports daily, how they're going to amend, and they've got to think on their feet and try to adapt. And now, of course, as COVID changes, and we've got these tests that are coming in, there's all the extra paperwork as well. And what can governors do to help and support head teachers? That's it. Thank you. Sorry there were so many, but I felt it was important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sandra. Eirik, I'll let you pass them out as appropriate.
Chairman, can I make a suggestion that we adjourn this meeting because we are due to go into County Council mode or for the other meeting at the moment?
Councillor Cath, when we move to the private section, we will end the meeting, and then we will take a 5-minute break at that point to enable Wynne to move on. I've got a couple more people to speak, and then we'll be wrapping this up.
Okay. I'll try and quickly answer these questions because I know you've got a couple more people as well. But yeah, we'll take on. Agree with the Welsh language. That has been a difficult area for some schools. There are schools that have coped well with this, knowing the expectations that you will not be able to have the same support at home as you would at school. Because the pupils are coming from English language backgrounds. Schools have taken on board the use of digital in a strong way to support those pupils there. They have been having regular contact with staff, ensuring that they can hear the language, because that's so important, especially with the younger pupils, to hear that as well, and to actually support the parents as well through this. So many of our schools have been doing that kind of self-help for parents, as well as setting up some of the work for the schools. There are struggles, there are troubles that schools have noticed, and I know when some of the schools I support came back in August, they've been using their autumn term, they were using their accelerated learning grant to support the Welsh language, because they knew that was one of the areas that the pupils hadn't had a lot of exposure to over the course of that time. So it was pleasing when I returned to that school that was saying before Christmas they were having difficulties with it over the autumn term, how much they had improved by being back in school and having the Welsh language around them again. Almost by re-immersing them back in the Welsh language, they were re-absorbing that back in. So again, it can be something that schools have tried to support over the course of this term, but it's also something that schools are very aware of, and they look forward to having the children back in school so that they can actually readdress some of those issues as well. But yeah, we completely understand that Welsh will be an area of concern during that time, but schools are trying to be creative in the way that they've addressed those over that point. I'll come to Anwen in a minute about the difficult to reach, be seen and be heard pupils. Is that all right? So recruiting of staff, yeah, again, a very difficult an area, especially across Mid Wales, of trying to get Welsh medium support staff, Welsh medium teachers inside there. We're trying to use all of our digital media to reach out to them. We're trying to use all our support teachers that we have on through our eTeach that we can use as well to try to support that. So we are trying to get as many in as we possibly can, but again, it's very difficult, especially in some areas across the county. And the third one is about head teacher workload. We've tried to again acknowledge that with our heads. Whenever we get to any holiday times, we're trying to say to them, look, we need you to have time off. We don't send out any information during that time to try to give them time, because we know it's such a difficult period at the moment. Things change from week to week. Immediately you come back from half term, and we've got the announcement that Key Stage 2 will be coming back in 3 weeks' time. and immediately pressure is put onto schools. But hopefully we are supporting them in the guidance that we're providing, in answering any of their questions that they have in terms of, the lateral flow tests, so that we can try to make it as easy as possible, but also recognize that this is such a trying time for each of the head teachers as well. So hopefully that's quickly answered those questions. Sorry, Councillor Sandra, I know I could go into a lot more detail on them, but it's a recognition and understanding that, yes, we agree with the points you're making. These are issues, but we are trying to address some of them as well.
Much appreciated. Thank you, Ireg.
Yeah,
I really
problem.
appreciate that. Thank you.
And Anwen, we're going to come in about the difficult to be seen and heard. Is that all right?
Thank you. I appreciate. Yes. Diolch yn fawr.
Eric, Hayley's going to do it, so if you can
Hayley,
pull up
sorry.
and be quick, yeah.
Sorry.
Diolch yn fawr. No, actually, electively home educated and children listed education does now sit in Anwen's team. But perhaps if I just start the story, and I'll be brief, Councillor Pete. With the hard to reach, we have very clear protocols in place. We keep lists of them. We have a central list of any pupils that are difficult to reach. Certainly a list of some children that hadn't been seen, but they have now. We've dealt with that really effectively with the support of the Educational Welfare Service, the support of youth services that's ongoing, and also within the ALN team, the sensory team as well. From very early on, we're doing doorstep and garden visits to support the hearing impaired, the visually impaired, the physically impaired young people. So I think that's really important to mention that. But with the hard to reach, very clear protocol. We have done joint visits with educational welfare officers and sometimes with head teachers or with wellbeing leads from schools, but it is making sure that we keep going and keep the communication open. And we've just now come to looking at a potential plan, looking at some form of engagement support plan to make sure that the family and the young person and the school have a very clear plan of how they will get those young people back in and how they will support them.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. That's really very assuring from both officers. Much appreciated. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you, Councillor Pete.
Thank you, Councillor Sandra. And Councillor Bryn.
Oh, iawn, diolch. Am gwahanol resymau, dwi wedi gweld first hand fel tai gwersi o tair ysgol cynradd gwahanol dros y flwyddyn. Ac mae rai fi ddweud o profiad yn go wahanol o cymaru fo un ysgol lle oedd na 2 ddosbarth mewn blwyddyn, doedd hwnna ddim yn powys, ond yn y bon o gyd o'r plant o'r un oed, oedd y cynnwys o'n nhw'n cael, a'r amser o'n nhw'n cael gyda'r athrawon, gymaint yn fwy nag oedd o yn yr ysgol efo lle oedd na 4 o flynyddoedd mewn un dosbarth. Ac da ni'n gwybod bod hwn yn wir mewn ysgolion, nes I crybwyll y peth cynt. Ond gyda teimlad ddrwg yn Meirf Esgyrn bod y profiad nid yn unig ydy'r athro'n gorfod ymdopi efo'r amrediad mewn gallu ac oedran yn yr ysgolion, ffrydiau bach yma, ond maen nhw hefyd gorfod ymdopi efo'r trafferthion ychwanegol dysgu ar-lein ac yn y blaen. Ydy hwnna wedi bwydo nôl I chi mewn unrhyw ffordd? Ydy'r problem yna wedi cael ei... Achos dwi'n weddol siŵr bod nhw'n problemau goddrifol. Mae'r profiad y plant yn yr dosbarthiadau bach aml oed, aml gallu, does dim cymhariaeth dwi'n meddwl. Ydy hwnna beth yw'ch teimlad chi? A gai ddod nôl ar un cwestiwn sydyn arall ar ôl hwn os gwelwch yna, Pete.
Diolch Cynghorydd Bryn, na I ateb hon I chi. Dwi'n gallu cydymdeimlo a un o'r pethau dyn ni wedi gweld ydy bod y ysgolion bech wedi gofod ymateb mewn ffyrdd eitha gwahanol a creadigol os ti eisiau I gymharu gyda'r ysgolion mawr. Un o'r pethau maen wedi gofod gwneud ydy falle penodi, dwi'n mynd i ddysgu blwyddyn 5 a 6 yn yr awr yma, blwyddyn 3 a 4 yr awr hon, a gwahanu fel hynny, lle efallai mewn ysgolion fwy, maen nhw wedi gallu deud, wel, 2 awr gael i ti trwy'r amser. Ond un o'r pethau dyn ni wedi gweld ydy bod y defnydd o'r cynorthwywyr wedi bod yn arbennig o dde, lle maen nhw wedi eistedd fewn a falle mae'r athrawes neu'r athro wedi cychwyn y wers, ond wedyn y athro, y TA wedi cymryd grŵp bach i ffwrdd trwy'r breakout rooms ac yn y blaen, i gymryd grŵp bach o ran i ddarllen neu i gwneud gwaith mathemateg ac yn y blaen. So mae'r ysgolion wedi gweithio'n greadigol iawn mwyn trio sicrhau bod nhw'n rhoi y cynnig gorau gles maen nhw'n gallu i'w disgyblion. Ond dwi'n mynd i guddio ffaith mae wedi bod yn galed lot fawr o waith. A prif athrawon a'r athrawon wedi gofod meddwl tu allan y bocs. Ond i fod yn onest i ti, mae bob ysgol wedi gofod meddwl yn eitha greadigol trwy'r flwyddyn dwytha yma.
Ie. Iawn, oce, i gobeithio bod nhw, dwi'n mwyn hollol convinced bod pob ysgol i bod yn meddwl... Dwi'n
gwybod beth ti'n dweud, ond os tan ti'n edrych ar y canlyniadau y holiadur, oedd dros 90% o rhieni y plant yn cytuno'n gry, neu'n cytuno bod eu darpariaeth wedi bod yn gry, ond na i ddim gweithio'r ffaith, mae yna crewellyn bech o bobl sydd yn teimlo nad ydy y darpariaeth nhw wedi cael. Wyt ti oed yn mynd i gael rhyw elfen yn dweud lle dydy pobl ddim yn hapus. Neu falle bod yr athrawes ddim yn hyderus i gynnig gwersi byw.
Na, digon teg, na di'r reality derbyn hynny. A cwestiwn atodol sydyn olaf ydy, dwi wedi gweld ysgolion uwchradd yn darparu gwersi ardderchog ar-lein, a blaw bod yr elfen gymdeithasol ar goll, fyswn ni'n gallu dadlau bod rhai o'r gwersi na cystal a fyswn nhw'n cael yn y dosbarth. Bron, o wedi dweud hynny, wel, i ein disgwyl, athrawon PE, marfer corff, mae pob un wers wedi bod yn wers rhydd cerch allan i wneud rhywbeth awr iach, sydd yn wych i'r plentyn. Ond y cwestiwn sgenna i, ydy'r ysgolion wedi ffindio rhywbeth arall i'r athrawon ymarfer corff gwneud mwyn i nhw rhannu'r baich sydd yn dal i fod yn drwm ar athrawon pynciau eraill, a pynciau craidd yn arbennig lle gennych chi llondos broth o blant yn bob un gwers. So, ydych chi'n gwybod am esiamplau lle mae'r athrawon ymarfer corff sydd ddim wedi gorfod paratoi gwersi, a dwi'n gwybod bod gen y gwersi arholiad ac yn y blaen, mae gen y wersi, ond mae yna sicr gwersi rhydd hefyd o ran cyswllt â phlant wedi digwydd yn gyson.
Diolch o ganol ti am hynny, Cynghorydd, achos pan dwi wedi gofyn y cwestiwn, mae rhai yn nhw wedi dweud, wel, maen nhw wedi rhoi gwersi byw, lle maen nhw wedi chwarae pêl fasged ac yn y blaen ar y sgrin. So falle bod fi ddim wedi cael y daflu'n cywir gen bawb, ond fyswn ni'n gobeithio yn wir fel ti'n dweud, ydyn nhw wedi bod yn helpu rhedeg yr elfennau gofal plant a edrych ar ôl y disgyblion sydd yn yr ysgol, y disgyblion bregus. A fel nes ti wedi crybwyll yn amlwg, mae yna gwersi tygau a lefel A, maen nhw dal yn gofod edrych ar ôl. So dwi'n mynd i, ar ôl y sylwad yna, na i holi ychydig bach yn fwy ddwfwn, achos pan dwi wedi gofyn y cwestiwn, dwi wedi cael yr ateb bod hyd yn oed gwersi PE yn dal i gymryd lle o ran falle fel y sydd yn y blaen, mae pêl fasged ar-lein oedd o. So, diolch i ti, mi na i ymhellach efo honna a holi yn ddyfnach.
Ie, fyswn ni'n ddiolchgar i chi gael gwneud hynny, achos mae eisiau rhannu'r baich.
Oi, yn heb os, yn union, mae o'n bwysig, os mae rhai wedi gweithio'n hynod o galed, a mae eisiau ni sicrhau tegwch.
Ie, diolch iawn.
Croeso.
Thank you both. That's the last of the questions I've got from colleagues. I'm going to finish off with one of my own for everyone. We're in a transition period. We are at some point going to be going back to what is colloquially called the new normal, or even the new normal. How different will that look from what you used to do 18 months ago? What has worked better in this environment that you're not going to go back to doing things the old way?
I'm happy to start on that one. I'll go back to some of my earlier comments about the new curriculum and the way that we need to be working, developing pupils' independent learning, the approaches that teachers have taken to blended learning, having pupils in school and out of school, the use of digital, is significantly improved over 18 months, over the last 12 months over that time, by the time we get back 18 months. All these are skills that teachers have adapted to over the course of this time. There are teachers now saying, it's actually drawing out better progress for some pupils because they've been allowed to be more independent rather than too structured. So these are things that we would be expecting to see as we go forward when they return to school, that we can have more pupil independence, that we can see progress being made with these pupils. And it's about individual pupil progress, not just about getting to the end of GCSE or to A levels as well. We should be looking at individual pupils and the progress they are making. Now, we feel that there are lots of things that we can take that are positives from this, that we can then implement back into our learning as well as we prepare towards the new curriculum. So those would be my way forward and what we should be seeing with our teaching profession.
And can I add, Chair, as well, I think from a leadership element, and some of your councillors have alluded to this already, I don't think we'll go back to traipsing across Powys and clocking up the miles. I know that the Chair of Governors meetings really commend and enjoy that 1 hour regular meeting, so I don't think we'll ever go back to having venues across, that we'll meet regularly online, and we'll ensure that carries on post-pandemic. Ironically, I was in a meeting with some schools the other day, and that's the exact question we were asking the teachers about. Think now about what we've learned from the pandemic, the strengths and what we can take forward. So how will our classrooms look in the future? It doesn't have to go back to how it was last February.
Thank you for that. Hayley, do you want to add anything from your perspective as well?
Sorry,
I feel
Chair.
guilty leaving you there.
Sorry, Chair. I'm just really mindful that we do have we are now running 15 minutes over time, and we do have officers and head teachers waiting for us in another meeting.
I'm aware of that as well, Councillor Fell.
I don't have anything else to add, Councillor Pete. That's fine, thank you.
In which case, I draw this section to a close. Thank you all for coming in today. It's very appreciative of the efforts, and it's very good to have a positive STIM report that we can deliver rather than working out how we would respond to it. Moving on, the final item of business for us today is to just briefly look at the work programme. You'll have seen in your agenda that we've got a number of dates that are in the diary to be confirmed. This is basically so that we know what we are looking at longer term, but a number of this is dependent on the actual papers for transformation coming forward. So hopefully we will see those move forward in the coming weeks to being firm dates rather than provisional dates. So unless anyone else has anything they wish to add, I'll draw a close to the formal session. Ask Wynne to take us offline, and if people have just a couple of minutes break to stretch their legs, and then we will move